Welcome back to the channel, guys. It's your boy N31LE, and today I'm going to be talking you through how to buy a used motorcycle.
Get out the way, who got a watch, who got the time, I'm raising the clock. Even in my feelings, grind don't stop. Got big dreams, want big rocks. I got plans, I got talk. That is real cheap, but it's really cold house. I'm trying to get these ends.
So chances are the reason why you're watching this video is because, one, you want to buy a used motorcycle. You've got a couple dollars in your pocket, you see something that you like, but you're not really too sure about how to go through with contacting the seller, what to look for, different issues that the bike that you're looking at may have, and all around deciding if that motorcycle is the right motorcycle for you. So let's just start with this beautiful 2023 BMW S1000 here that we have today. So let's just say I'm in the market for a used motorcycle because I don't want to buy new. I don't know what I'm looking for. I don't want to get screwed over by salesmen. Don't want to have to deal with different things like that, get haggled, and I don't want to spend too much money at a dealership when I can just go to a private sale and get basically the same type of deal. So before I even go look at a motorcycle, I have a general idea of the type of motorcycle that I want. I know I want a sports bike, for example. I know I want a cruiser, a naked bike, things of that nature. So before the actual buying process takes place, the few things that I do just to preemptively get ahead of the curve in terms of looking to buy a motorcycle is I'm doing things that don't really cost a lot of money. I'm doing things like joining forums on the type of bikes that I want, looking up the Kelley Blue Book value of all the types of bikes that I want, because I don't have one choice, or I may have one choice. I have three or four different choices of styles of bikes that I want. I know I like sports bikes, so I'm not going to be looking at naked bikes. I'm not going to be looking at cruisers, things of that nature. I mean, things like this that just make sense. You know what I'm saying? So if I'm in the market for a sports bike, I know I'm looking at the BMW, I know I'm looking at Kawasaki, I know I'm looking at Honda. Those are the three brands that I like. I may also be looking at Suzuki's Gixxer. But another thing that I'm doing, again, that makes sense is I'm joining the forums of these types of motorcycles, and I'm seeing the issues that the owners that actually have these bikes have. Because I don't want to buy, for example, a 23 BMW, and then I've got to deal with a water pump issue that may take a month to 2 months to solve. I don't want to buy a Kawasaki ZX-10 and then a week later I've got transmission issues. I don't want to buy a Gixxer and have electrical problems. I'm looking at the things that I'm choosing to deal with, because at the end of the day, every motorcycle is going to have its problems. You're just looking at how much do you want to deal with those problems, and if you're mechanically inclined to deal with those problems. Because at the end of the day, any problems that the motorcycle has is going to cost you money. So let's just say we narrowed our choices down to the 23 BMW S1000RR. So I'm on the forums, paying attention to all the issues, every new issue that gets brought up. I'm looking at all the different fixes. I'm looking at everything that I need to know to basically know this bike and what to look for before I even go look at the bike. So once I do that, I have a good general idea of the things that I'm looking for when I physically see the bike in person. Now the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go on Kelley Blue Book and I'm gonna look up the actual value of the motorcycle. So a 2023 BMW S1000RR in good condition, low miles, let's just say is $24,000, right? So if I see a Craigslist ad for the same type of bike and the bike is valued, or the owner wants $30,000 off it, I know I'm gonna not pay attention to that ad in any sort of way. Now if I see a Craigslist ad for this same type of bike that's $25,000, it's got a little bit of mods on it, like a full exhaust, levers, windshield, whatever else have you, the Bren tuning and things like that. Now I know I'm getting kind of a steal because all of those mods, including in the value of the bike that I'm going to buy it for, is going to be a pretty darn good deal, because like I said, the Bren tuning in itself is valued at $1,000. So if the bike in good value with low miles is valued at $24,000, and they're offering me all these things, and it's only $1,000 over what Kelley Blue Book says, I'm gonna be less inclined to argue with the owner or the seller of the value of the motorcycle once I get there. So we're gonna save time, and we're only gonna look at the ads in the price range that we realistically can understand or accept. So once we narrow down our choices of the list of motorcycles that we wanna go look at, the things that we're looking at in the ads are, is the mileage clearly visible? Are there clear pictures? Is there good contact information, whether it's a phone number or an email or something along those lines? We want to basically validate the ad for authenticity. Is it made by a robot? Is it a scam? Is it actually the real owner? Now, if we see a 23 BMW listed on Craigslist for $3,000, obviously we're gonna know that it's more than likely not a real ad. Another thing we're gonna look for, is it a clean title? Is it a repair title? Do they have a title in general? And what is the status of that title, essentially? We don't wanna be paying $23,000, $24,000, $25,000 for a motorcycle with a repair title. Let's be honest here. And we also really don't wanna be paying any significant amount of money for a motorcycle with no title. That should be a red flag to you. So once we validate the authenticity of the ad, we made sure we know the status of the title, we got the owner's contact information, we made sure that we had clear pictures. Now what we want to do is we kind of want to talk to the owner. Why are they selling the bike? How much money are they realistically looking to get from this motorcycle? What are some mods, if they didn't list anything, what are some mods that they did? Have they rode the motorcycle hard? How was the service history? Different things like that. You want to see how well they took care of this bike, because at the end of the day, you don't want to be buying someone else's used junk. Now, once we get a good feeling for how the motorcycle was treated, we like it, we want to go see the bike. Before we even go see the bike, one thing that you want to make sure you tell the seller is to not have it running before you get there. You want to view a cold motorcycle. Why? For example, my Ram 1500, like the one that you see me driving occasionally, we've got something called a hemi-tick. Now, once the oil is drained to the bottom of the motor, there's no oil in the top of the motor circulating around, the lifters are generally pretty loud. So that doesn't happen on new motors. That's happened after the truck has been ran, you know, 100, 150,000 miles. You got some snapped header bolts, things like that. Now, if any bike is gonna have an issue, it's gonna have an issue on its cold start, okay? So that can be an indication of the tune, that can be an indication of the overall condition of the motor. Because if the bike has any issues, those issues are gonna pop up during a cold start. Whether the bike starts at all, that could be an indication of a dead battery or spark plugs, different things like that. Whether you see white smoke coming out of the exhaust, that can be an indication of bad piston rings. Whether you hear any ticking, you know, things like that. Things like that. Like I said, any major issues or any issues in general are going to be present on the cold start. So tell the seller you want to see the bike cold start. Now I want you to calm down, because you get there, you see the bike, your emotions are going to be super high. This is your dream bike, you know, this is something that you always wanted. It's your first motorcycle. I want you to bring it down here, because this is at the point where you're more likely to give your money away for somebody else's problem. I've been guilty of this, okay? So once you see the bike in person, you want to take a good 360-degree view of the entire outside of the motorcycle. This is where you're going to look for things like damage. Has the bike been dropped? Has there been any fairings replaced? How are the tires? How is the oil? Now, I'll say it once and I'll say it 1,000 times more. PitLaneMoto.com for all your motorcycle needs. Not only BMW, Honda, Kawasaki, Yamaha, KTM, Ducati, any bike that you name of, Zeb can get it for you. So make sure you contact him at 919-337-8667. They do have a 100% price match guarantee. They have first responder and military discounts available. So if you see something that you want online that's not on the website, contact Zeb via call or text. If you see it's cheaper somewhere else, still contact Zeb. He'll be able to give you a 100% price match guarantee. And again, first responder and military discounts are available. So if you're either one of those, you can get some more money off. Also, if you tell him your boy N31LE sent you, he might also get you some money off as well. You never know. So contact Zeb, 919-337-8667. Tell him your boy N31LE sent you, and you should get some pretty good discounts on any part that you need. So let's just say we're looking at this bike, right? So we know we've got giant wings hanging off the side of the bike. So if this bike was ever dropped on either side, there's going to be some damage somewhere. Now, granted, this bike has never been dropped. So we're going to have some damage on the wing portion or some damage up here and there. Another place to look at is the levers. Are the levers scratched up? Again, this bike has never been dropped, so there's not going to be any damage. But on a bike that has been dropped, if they haven't replaced the levers, you're going to see the damage here and here on the bar ends. Look to see if it even has bar ends. If it doesn't have bar ends, look inside. Let's just say this is taken off. If you look inside the bar itself, it's gonna have either a snap screw or just a clean bar end insert to look at. Another thing to look at is the side of the tank. How is the tank doing? If it's been dropped, you'll most likely have a dent somewhere in this area or some scratches. Again, if it's been dropped, it's gonna have scratches on the stator cover, the foot pegs, the kickstand, you know, different things like that. Things that make sense to where if a bike was ever laid down, you're gonna see it. So different things you're gonna want to look at again is the back of the axle, because this can be scraped up, scraped up. The swing arm spool, again, like that could be scratched up. Now, you obviously want to look to see if it has like any general wear and tear, because obviously this is not going to be the most clean because you're putting a stand on it. So do a good 360, take a good look at the bike. Again, on both sides, I am fully aware that your emotions are going to be high, but take a good look, because at the end of the day, this is your money, and you don't want to be spending too much money on things that you're going to have to replace in the long run. So look at the status of the exhaust. You know, any scratches will be somewhere on the outside. Look at the tank. Look at the status of the paint, you know, because at the end of the day, a lot of people will replace their fairings, but they won't bother to repaint their tank if there's anything wrong. So if they've replaced their fairings, a lot of the times, if it's cheap, like OEM fairings, like from China and things like that, the paint will be a little bit off from the tank to the fairings themselves if the fairings have been replaced. Look at the status of your oil, okay? So if you notice, my oil is green, so that's Motul 7100 or whatever it's called. Now that's normal. This is supposed to be green oil. Notice it's kind of like brown as well. So depending on the type of oil that the owner used, it can be different colors. So you want to make sure that it's somewhere near the fill line, and it's not like, make sure there's oil in the motorcycle. That's one thing that you want to make sure of. That's a good status of that's a good telltale of if the owner is taking care of the bike. Again, look at the side of the fairings, look at the bar ends, look at your levers and things like that. Just look for any kind of scratches on if the motorcycle has been laid down at any point. A lot of the times if a motorcycle has been laid down, there'll be telltale signs of it somewhere. So you'll be able to see it somewhere on the motorcycle, no matter how many times the owner has replaced the fairings or repainted stuff like that. There'll always be a telltale sign of if a bike has been laid down. Now, before your exterior inspection is complete, another thing we want to look at is we want to look at the tires. Now, if you notice, a lot of tires, motorcycle tires, if they're brand new, they'll have a pretty good curve around them. This one kind of has a flat spot at the top because of a lot of highway riding. Now, this is not necessarily bad, but you just know that this tire has about maybe 2,000-3,000 more miles left, especially with the depth of the tread right here. So like I said, this is a brand new bike. It has 2,000 miles on it. So the tires aren't necessarily going to be bad, but you can tell it's going to need to be replaced at some point. This tire is about half its life left. So you want to look at the tread depth, look at the condition of the tire. And another thing people forget, look at the date of the tire as well. Now this might be on the wrong side. So if you look for the date, it should be somewhere here. If you can see that pretty well, it says 06/23. So the 6th week of 2023 is when this tire was made. Okay. So now if you've got like a 2010 bike and you notice your tires are from 2005, now that obviously those tires are going to have to be replaced. You don't want to be riding on really old tires. Another thing you want to look at is look at the condition of your brake discs. Now, obviously, if this brake disc was super thin, I'd be less inclined to take it out on a test drive and look at the condition of your brakes as well. Now, like I said, this is a brand new bike, so the brakes are going to be brand new. But again, like I said, look at the condition of the brakes. Make sure that there's enough pads and things like that. Look at the condition of your chain. Okay, this chain is pretty good. It's a brand new bike again, so you want to look in your sprockets and see if there's any like shark fins that you've got. You want to make sure that all the teeth are there. You want to take a good look at that, make sure that the chain has been cleaned and lubricated. Now, if it hasn't been, then that's fine as well. But you know that at the end of the day, this is money that you're going to be spending to replace this stuff. So if you see different things like a worn out chain, bad tires, I would use this as a bargaining point to take some money off of the original sale of the bike. Look at the front tires, you know, look at the condition. You mean the same exact thing that you were looking for on the back is what you want to look for on the front as well. As far as your brake discs as well, if you have two, some bikes may only have one, like race bikes and things like that, 300s, 250s. And again, look at the brakes on your calipers as well. Make sure that there's adequate brake depth. Another thing that people do forget is the forks. Make sure your forks aren't leaking. Make sure that there's no visible drips. Now, if you have little like oil residue from the forks moving around, that's normal as well. But you just want to make sure that the forks aren't leaking. So let's go to fluids. Again, we're gonna check our oil. If we haven't already, make sure that we note the condition of the oil, if there's oil in there, and the color of it. We're gonna wanna look at brake fluid, the condition of it, the color. Make sure that it's somewhere near the fill line. Now, obviously that's pretty clear. A lot of bikes won't be like this. Wanna look at the front and the rear, okay? So if it's this like dark and really cloudy, we know that that's gonna have to be replaced. If it's empty, we're gonna know that there's either a problem or it has to be replaced. Coolant. So the coolant on the BMWs, it's kind of hard to see. So you can see a little bit down there. So mine obviously has a coolant drip, and I'll show you that here in a second. But you know, if you see low coolant, depending on the year of the bike, you're gonna want to be questioning why it does, you know, why it has low coolant. A lot of bikes' coolant reservoirs will be back here. Like on my Honda, it was like a fill extra overflow back here somewhere. So if you got like a Honda or a Yamaha, Kawasaki, it might be back here. So look for the coolant reservoir and see the condition of that as well. So now in terms of fluids, a lot of the times fluids follow the direction of gravity. So a good thing you want to do is you want to take a look from under the bike, make sure that there's no fluids dripping on the floor, or if there's any coolant pools, you'll see it here. Again, it's a 2023 BMW that does have an issue with the coolant leak, the recall or whatever you want to call it. So I do have to get my water pump replaced. But again, you can see the dried coolant here, and there's nothing much else leaking. So once we get that taken care of, that shouldn't be an issue anymore. But again, like I said, if any bike is going to have an issue with any coolant, it's going to follow the direction of gravity. So take a look from under the motorcycle, see if there's any spots, dried oil, leaking coolant, things like that, things of that nature. So now that you've verified the condition of the motorcycle, you're safe with everything, you're okay with the brakes, the tires, everything of that nature, now is when you want to go for a test drive. Now, it's generally understood that if you drop the motorcycle, it's yours. So if you don't have a lot of experience with motorcycles, bring a friend that's more experienced so that they can test ride the motorcycle. They can tell you the different things that are wrong with it, different things you'll have to fix, different things they noticed, because any experienced motorcyclist is going to know any mechanical issues that arise during a test drive. So moral of the story, don't be afraid to walk away from anything that you see that you don't like. Now, I would encourage you, like I said, to have 3 or 4 choices. If you're going to look at bikes during the day or the week, look at more than just one, because you might pull up to one house and really like one, then you go to the next house and you might like that one a little bit more than this one. So have a few choices that you can actually decide on. I like this one a little bit more than this one is lower, this one's a little bit higher. So have a few different choices, because the bike that you really like might not have all of the mods that you want to do, versus the bike that you really don't like that much has all the mods that you want to do, but it might need a slight retune. See what I'm saying? So have a few different choices, so therefore you can accurately choose, I like this bike for this reasons, but this bike has less money for me to spend, and I might go with this bike because it may only need $500 versus I might need to buy all the mods that I want to do for this bike, which is $5,000, over the $500 bike that might need a retune. See what I'm saying? So have a few choices, therefore you can make a good decision on 1, 2, or 3. So before you go on your test ride, you want to do a couple different checks before you even go to make sure that the bike is safe to ride. You want to make sure that, of course, the brakes work. You want to make sure that your lights work. You want to make sure that your turn signals are operative. And again, you want to do the same thing for the back of the bike as well. Do the brake lights work? Do the turn signals work? Does the back brake work? Are the pegs in good condition? Or do they look like they're going to break off at any point? Just make sure overall that the bike is safe to ride before you even go. Because the last thing that you want to happen is you go out onto the street and your tail light doesn't work, and then you get rear-ended by a car. Now you've got to buy a bike that, one, you didn't want, that wasn't safe to ride, and that now you've got to pay out of pocket because this bike didn't have insurance as well. So again, make sure the bike is safe to ride before you even go out on the test ride to begin with. So one thing you're going to want to do before you take it out on a test ride is you're going to want to negotiate the price of the bike before you even leave. One thing you want to do this is because when you leave for the test ride, again, like I just said, if you lay it down, whether you like it or not, the bike is yours. That's a general rule of thumb. Before you even take it out, you want to negotiate the price so that way you're not spending too much money or just giving away everything that you own once you take the bike out for a test ride with all the cash in the owner's hands. So any condition of the fairings, the fairing damage, the paint mismatch, the tires, the brakes, the fluids leaking, you're going to want to negotiate the price of this motorcycle down based on the cost of what it's going to take to repair these things. Now, if Chinese fairings on eBay are $400 for a whole set and the fairings are dinged up, I'm not going to take off $1,000 for the bike. Let's be reasonable here. Now, if it was like a $5,000 bike and the fairings were $400, I might take off $250 because I've got to replace the fairings. But again, you have to be realistic with the different costs to repair whatever is wrong with it, if there is anything wrong with it to begin with. So on another note, if you see anything that you don't like, do not be afraid to walk away. At the end of the day, this is your hard-earned money. So if you see some major mechanical problem and you just happen to spend an hour of the seller's day, you don't owe them anything. This is your hard-earned money, so do not be afraid to walk away if you don't like something on the bike. Now, that being said, if the bike is red and you want a blue bike, again, let's be realistic. Let's be realistic, because at the end of the day, that is something that you can change, and at the end of the day, you did choose to go look at the bike, being that it was blue and your favorite color is red. So be a little bit more realistic in terms of the things you want to walk away from. Now, if you start the bike and you hear it ticking like crazy, that is something where I would say, hey, maybe this isn't for me. So once you start the bike, you take it out for a test drive, you come back and you like everything with it, or you don't like something with it, that will be another reason to negotiate the price a little bit lower. Hey, I noticed that once the bike was warmed up, it has now an oil leak. Now, again, depending on where the oil leak is coming from, this may be something that I may choose to walk away from. That's just an example. Hey, I noticed that it doesn't seem to have full power. It might need a retune. Let's bring this price down like $200-300 more, because this is something that I do have to take care of. So moral of the story, don't be afraid to walk away from anything that you see that you don't like. So once you do all these things, hopefully you got a good understanding of how to buy a used motorcycle. If you guys have any questions, make sure to contact me via @N31LE on Instagram, or make some comments down below on my YouTube channel. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel as well. Now, let's say you like everything about the motorcycle and you're ready to purchase. Now, this is where you want to finish up the overall viewing process and the sale of the bike. So this is where the owner or the seller will give you the paperwork to sign. This is where you guys will hand over the money after you agree on the price. This is where you come up with a bill of sale. So that is one thing that you definitely want to make sure that you get before you even leave. Make sure you get the title and the bill of sale of the motorcycle. Now, if they don't have the title, again, make sure you get the bill of sale, because that's going to be your proof that you officially bought the motorcycle from the seller. Make sure that they sign it. Make sure there's an agreement price. I mean, this is something that you can get off of Google. Like, a general bill of sale should work. Make sure that the date is signed, because the last thing that you want is you want to buy a motorcycle and then you don't have a bill of sale, and then the seller just automatically disappears without your title. So make sure you get all that stuff day one. If they don't have the title, if the bike hasn't been paid off, then make sure that they have your address and your contact information so that they can send you the bill of sale once they get it. Another thing you want to take note of is the taxes to transfer the bike into your name. So there's going to be a little something called sales tax, because of course Uncle Sam has to get his share. So make sure you set some money aside for that as well, because the purchase of the bike isn't the last thing that you're going to be spending money on. If you have to do fluid changes, which I suggest that you do, I don't trust anybody with any type of mechanical anything that I buy. So once I buy something, the first thing that I'm doing is an oil change, because I don't know when the last time they did one was. If the oil was clear, I'm still gonna do it, because that's a peace of mind that I have. So first thing I'm doing is changing the oil. Now, depending on the motorcycle, that could cost between 40 to 80 bucks. An oil filter, make sure you change the oil filter. Some different fluid changes, I might want to do some different coolant. Now, I like to run engine ice in all of my bikes. That is something that you will have to come up with money for. So don't think that the sale of the bike is your last thing that you're going to be paying for. You got to pay for insurance. You got to pay for your MSF courses if you don't have your license yet. So take all these things into consideration, because like I said, the sale of the motorcycle is not going to be your last cost at the end of the day. Another thing you might want to take note of is transportation expenses. So you may not have a truck. Hopefully you do, to go and pick up your brand new motorcycle, or you can ride it home. Now, depending on if you can do that, depends on your state. Now, again, that really depends on where you live. So I wouldn't recommend doing that, but if you have a truck, then you don't have to worry about this part. So you can enlist the help of your friend, or you can go to U-Haul, get a truck for like $20 with a trailer, and put the motorcycle on there. At some point, you have to get the motorcycle home. If you like today's video, hit the like button. Also, subscribe to this channel. That way, whenever I drop any new content, you'll be the first to know. If you have any comments, drop them down below. Remember, I'm here for you guys, so anything you want to see, let me know and I'll make the video for you. Thanks for tuning in.